Welcome to Great Practice, Great Life by Atticus Incorporated.
All right, that's right. You're hearing from a different voice today. I'm not Steve Riley. You know, when I found out who this episode's guest was going to be, I may have locked Steve in the Regency Ballroom at the Hyatt so I could take over. Why? Because today we're talking to a legend. As a lifelong hockey guy, yeah, I still tape my stick perfectly before every beer league game. I wasn't going to miss the chance to talk to this guy. Our guest today is none other than Grant Fuhr. Now, if you're not a hockey fan, you may not immediately recognize that name, so let me paint this picture for you. Grant Fuhr is a Hockey Hall of Famer, a 5-time Stanley Cup champion. He was the backbone of the Edmonton Oilers dynasty of the 80s and one of the most clutch, resilient goaltenders the game has ever seen. If you happen to be a Boston Bruins fan, he may have made us cry more than once. He's also the first Black player inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And his story, on and off the ice, is one of leadership, pressure, comeback, and growth. But today's episode is not just going to be about hockey. It's going to be about what greatness under pressure really looks like, some discipline, I hope, coaching, identity, and how to build a great life after the buzzer sounds. So whether you've never watched a minute of NHL action or you grew up watching the Canada Cup of '87, yelling at the TV, there's going to be something here for you, I promise. So let's get into it. Grant, thank you so much for coming to the Atticus community today. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you.
No, it's my pleasure, Jonathan.
I don't even know where to start. There's so many good things with you. So I thought the best place to start was to kind of talk about some of these iconic moments, the elite culture you got to play in. So I'm going to start with an easy softball to get us going. What was it like playing on one of the greatest NHL teams of all time?
You know what? As a kid growing up in Edmonton, you get a chance to play with half a dozen of the best players in the world. It's a kid's dream come true. I think more than anything, everybody dreams of playing in the National Hockey League, and I get to live my dream.
It's funny, from those series of Oilers teams, there's so many of you that got inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame. I mean, just so many great players there. So I kind of, when I was thinking about that, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how did the culture, like that locker room culture, how did that push the team to be great?
I think a lot of that was Glenn Sather. I mean, he brought us up in kind of a family atmosphere where you didn't want to let the guy down next to you. And we kind of looked at it like that. And he kind of referred to it as a chain link fence. It's only as strong as its weakest link. So you didn't want to be that guy that was the weak link. And with everybody thinking that way on the same page, it made us a pretty good hockey club.
You know, that's I love that answer. It was surprising because of the player you named. Of all the players on the team, that's not the one I thought you would say. Can you talk a little more about what Glenn did that helped kind of further that idea and really link you together?
Glenn, for people that don't know, Glenn was our coach, general manager, president, all the above. But we were all 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. So he kind of instilled a culture in us that you have to support each other. You're going to be together more than you are with your own family. And he got us to buy into that. And I think that was the biggest key, is we all bought into it. And as you buy into it and you start to believe it, then that's how the guys competed. They compete for one another and they'll do pretty much anything for each other.
So that mindset that Glenn kind of instilled in you, was that different from the teams you're playing on, working your way to the NHL?
No, it's similar, but it's different. A lot of teams don't see it as a family. Especially if you look at today's game, it's become more of a bunch of micro businesses where sometimes it's more about the money than it is about winning. Whereas we were brought up that it's about winning. Winning creates the money end of it. So as long as you're successful as a team, everybody wins. It's not about individuals. It's about doing your own little part that fills into that.
I would imagine on one hand, that may feel like it puts pressure on you, but on the other hand, based on how you described it, it may relieve pressure if you're all in line. Is that observation right?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, we were taught that it's not really pressure. It's an opportunity to succeed. When you start to worry about it, then it becomes pressure. But it keep giving yourself chances to succeed. It gives you something to build towards, and then you never, ever stop building.
So immediately when you said that answer, because I love that answer, that, you know, chances to succeed, one of kind of the great hockey quotes that your teammate is famous for coining. And it's, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, some guy that wore 99.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Well.
may have been a hockey player, but that immediately resonated with me when you said it's kind of about the chances. So I'd love to kind of talk about what's behind that thought and how that applied to you.
For me, I played at home, so half the people in the building. A lot of people struggle with that. I was pretty lucky. I managed to manage it. Where yeah, it's a pleasure to play in front of friends and family, but yeah, there's expectations, and you have to look at the expectations. You have to manage the expectations to be successful at it.
That's yeah, really remarkable because when you are kind of the hometown player and you have the expectations, isn't there a lot of stuff off the ice too, like people calling to get the games and what are you going to do afterwards? Does that add to the pressure of just being on the ice?
It just adds to the outside noise more than anything. Is you've got all sorts of outside things going on, and when it comes to the game, you have to focus 100% on the game. So for me, once I used to go to the rink at 3:15 for a 7 o'clock game, it just gave me the peace and quiet at the rink where nobody could bother you, and you just focused on the game.
Yeah, being a goaltender is a special thing. Can we agree on that?
It's a little bit different. It's not a job that everybody would enjoy, but
Right.
I did.
Yeah, if you're voluntarily agreeing to face down, rubber biscuits, hard rubber biscuits being shot at you at untold speeds, and you're gonna voluntarily put yourself in front of them. There's a different mindset, and kind of one of the upsets I always had because I was a defenseman was watching the goaltenders I played with show up the rink and kind of do their thing before a game, and it always amazed me. So when you kind of said to me, you get up at 3 to the arena and start doing your thing. What did that pregame ritual look like for you?
For me, it was just a matter of going. You could hang out, have a coffee. We had a ping pong table in the dressing room. You could play some ping pong. It's just getting yourself in the right headspace more than anything, where you get a chance to relax and you tune the outside noise out. That's a big part of being a goalie.
Like staying loose is what came to mind.
Yeah, you just want to be relaxed. It's hard to play the game if you're nervous and you're tight.
That's kind of a good point that I want to pick on a little bit, like nervous and tightness. So, for those of you, who don't know, there are, 6 players on the ice at all times. Technically 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. And the key is there, it's 1 goaltender, right? So if the puck goes in the net, Grant, where's everybody looking?
Well, you know what the fun part about being a goalie is? It's the only job in the world where a red light flashes every time you make a mistake.
Yeah, I used to put what's the joke? Hey, you got a sunburn on the back of your neck. But but true, but everyone's looking back there. So as you were kind of talking about the looseness and being tight, what's that like? I mean, you played in some really big games, right? And of course goals are going to go in. How would you deal with that? I got to get right back in because I'm going to drop the puck and keep playing after someone scored on you.
I think once you give up a goal, you have to the optical illusion that it doesn't bother you. Because your players are looking at you to see how you react. So if you look calm, they're calm. If you treat it as it's not a big deal, then they'll treat it as not a big deal. If you look like you're in a mad panic, they play differently. They play in a mad panic. So a lot of it's body language more than anything.
But you project out.
Yeah, you're like a duck, calm on top, and your feet are running a million miles an hour underneath.
If it's okay with you, I want to get you to talk about one of my favorite stories I've heard you tell, and it's the story of your first playoff game. Because I don't think it went the way any goalie would want to draw it up. So can you talk about that game? And I love this story, and I've heard you talk about it before. I think it fits in with what we're talking about.
Yeah, my first playoff game didn't go so well. We lost against LA 10-8 without an empty net goal. So, yeah, I was comfortable. We managed to give up 10 goals my first playoff game, which definitely set in a little bit of panic. But we played again the next night against LA, and it went much better than that. Actually, the next 2 games went really well. And then we blew a 5-0 lead in the third period in LA in game 4, which didn't work out so well for us, and then had to come back home, and we lost 7-4 at home. So I thought I was going to have a pretty short career after that first playoff.
The reason it came to mind is, especially as I remember that game. It really kind of, I think, amplifies in a positive what you were just talking about. It's kind of how you react, and you reacted from it by coming back and really backboning 2 really good games, right? What's it take to bounce back after a performance like that?
I think you got to believe in yourself and trust yourself. I mean, after that, my second year didn't start off so well. It was just a matter of I'd lost a little bit of confidence. And when it takes the wind out of your sails, it's hard to get that wind back in. So it probably took me till Christmas, January the next year to get the wind back in the sails again and get to where you believe in yourself and you start to doubt yourself. Things seem to roll the opposite direction pretty well. So you've got to find that confidence in yourself and trust yourself and having that belief in yourself.
And what does that look like? Just showing up every day, or is there something else you do to try and get over that?
No, you've got to put the work in, but you got to not get down on yourself. It's easy to think about all the negative. Everybody will point that out for you. It's in the papers every day. You've got to find the little positives each day. And I still, to this day, will try and find a little positive in every day, and you build off of that.
Yeah. And I think this is a good opportunity to kind of segue a little bit, because when we're talking about this, I kind of call it an edge, like, finding the edge, keeping the edge, getting the edge back. And I want to be curious, when you're playing at the level you're playing at, what role does coaching play in this for you?
More plays more in today's game than it did back then. We didn't have goalie coaches back then. So you were kind of left on an island by yourself and you had to figure it out by yourself. You had your partner, which I was pretty lucky. I had Ronnie Lowe my first year where I could talk to him. He'd been in the league for 10 years already. So you get a chance to bounce ideas off of each other. But I didn't have my first goalie coach till Buffalo, which was
Really?
92. And I'd already been in the league for 12 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of it I had to figure out on my own. But as the game's progressed, coaching's progressed, and it's nice to have somebody to just bounce ideas off of, talk to, so that you don't sit there and you think about it 24/7.
That's really interesting because, I mean, yes, I'm aware, how team dynamics have developed and evolved over time. But I wasn't aware then that, the coaching staff was that limited, so that you were kind of out there. So, and that was, we're also talking pre-internet days. So
It's no
like
internet. You
no
actually have to read
internet,
books.
no Wi-Fi. You got to read books and get into it. That's really interesting. So we can back that thought up for a second. What role did coaching play for you then, as you were kind of on your trajectory?
We were lucky at Edmonton. Glenn was always really positive. I mean, yeah, if you had a bad game, he'd let you know you had a bad game. But at the same time, he was positive the next morning. And we had the one golden rule. You can be mad at yourself, upset with yourself, till you fall asleep. When you get up the next day, it's a new day. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to find a way to get better. So you keep it in those short segments like that. It's a better process because you get up, you start all over the next day. When that day ends, once you go to sleep, that day's over, you start again. And you just keep trying to build into something more and more positive.
That's genius. It is. When I was coaching youth sports, we would call it turning the page. We let the kids wallow, but then turn the page and let's go again. But I would imagine there's times where it's not that easy to turn that page, right?
Well, there's days when things aren't going well that the mind works really well. But that's when you have to kind of just force yourself to look at the positive side of it. Because every day's got positive, every day, something positive in it. Every day's got something negative in it. It's what you choose to focus on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like golf now. In a round of golf, you're going to have negative, you're going to have positive. What do you choose to focus on?
Well, I think for some of us, right, we can't help but focus on that negative, right? So it's got to develop those tools to get out of that. So how does that work?
But it's human instinct to look at the negative. That I think that's the unfortunate part. But since I've retired, I kind of like to look at sports psychology. I still read a bunch about it. I've become friends with a couple of sports psychologists, and just to see the thinking side of it. And it's something you actually have to learn, is to look at the positive side of things. It's everybody looks at the negative, everybody points out the negative. Nobody really takes the positive. So you've got to find a way to pick out the positive and try and run with that. When I was coaching, I wouldn't show guys the negative stuff. I'd show them the positive stuff, just because you want them to believe in themselves.
We have a tool in our community. It's a planner that we use. And when you're in the daily, weekly parts of the planner, there's actually a section that calls us to find gratitude, right? To find the positive. Because I think, if you train yourself to find it, it's easier to find, right?
Oh, most definitely. And it becomes a habit. Just like finding the negative's a habit, finding the positive becomes a habit too. And when you get used to it, like I use my Whoop, and it's got a section for it to try and find something positive every day.
Well, now you're really talking, we could initiate you. So there's a few of us in the Atticus community that are Whoop members, and we developed an Atticus Whoop kind of group there, so you can all see, who slept well last night, who didn't. So Whoop's a great tool. What are the tools are you using to kind of help build the habit of gratitude? Because it is, I do agree with you, it is a habit that's worth building. Hey, it's Jonathan. I want to tell you about a workshop I think you really want to check out. It's called The Path to a Great Practice and a Great Life. Now, whether you're brand new to Atticus or already a member, this is one of the best places to hit reset, get focused, and map out where you really want to go next with your practice and your life. You're going to walk through 4 key elements, starting with income. We'll look at how the top 1% of lawyers grow their firms, increase their profits, and do it all without burning out. Then we'll help you define a bold personal vision for what your great life actually looks like, and turn that from a dream into action with a step-by-step plan. Now, if this sounds like a conversation you want to be a part of, hit the link in the show notes to register. Atticus members, you're already in. You only have to sign up. And if you're new to Atticus, we have a promo code that takes $500 off. Just use podcast 500 when you sign up in the link below. All right, that's it from me. Let's get back to the episode.
I've always tried to find something, try and learn one thing new every day, try and find something positive every day.
Yeah.
And I've done that since I was about 18 years old. So if I can pick something out that's positive every day, then I've succeeded at that side of it. And yeah, not every day runs perfect. I mean, if you travel, you'll find that there's not a lot of positives traveling anymore, but you still try and find something positive. So I just make a point of it.
So you're really speaking to what's near and dear to me. I created a gratitude habit some time ago, and use the tools that I use. But what I'm curious to learn about is, you mentioned you started when you were kind of 18, 19. Do you remember what sparked that? Like what said, I'd want to start doing this?
Just watching different guys. I mean, obviously you have Wayne Gretzky in the room who's positive all the time. Glenn Sather was a very positive guy. He was big on the positivity. Mark Messier was big on the positivity. So it's kind of a culture that was ingrained to us.
Yeah. So it was built, and then you chose to absorb that culture, right?
You absorb it and you try and build on it. And I still use it to today.
When you stopped playing, right, you did some coaching, right?
I did. I spent 10 years after I was done.
Yeah. So how did you bring that tool and that mindset to those you were coaching?
I didn't consider it coaching. I consider you sit down and you just talk to the guys. And you can pick the technical stuff out, coaching and that sort of thing, but it's trying to find a mindset. And if you can get them to believe in themselves and find the positivity, then they're going to be better goalies. And when it is negative, you kind of eat the negative for them so that they don't allow themselves to take the negative side of things. You pick out the positives, you eat the negatives. The press obviously will pull out the negatives. So you try and eat that so that the goalies don't have to.
I think it's worth zooming in for a second because, as I mentioned, a lot of us have teams in our businesses, right? We have teams. We have people that we support that work for us. And I love to kind of spend some time talking about this idea of eating the negative. Like, what does that mean? How do you really do that so you can stay positive to help inspire others who might be leading teams and can get a benefit from this?
I kind of look at it. If you're the head of a business, instead of letting your employees take the heat, then you end up taking the heat for them. Right? Yeah, you can pass it along a little bit, but in a much more private, quiet kind of a environment. Whereas when you're in public, that sort of thing, it's always a positive environment. So nobody ever sees the negative.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's always thinking positive. They've always got a good feeling about themselves, and you build off of that.
And that's all, you know what? As easy as that sounds, that's a really hard skill to develop.
It's harder than it sounds, but
Right.
we've had a couple of years of practice at
it. Yeah. So, how do you stay focused on, and how do you practice creating that skill?
Well, I've got a couple of kids that I work with now that I try and do the same thing. They're playing golf, so lots of positive, lots of negative, but you try and get them to think about the positive side of it. I mean, everybody has negatives. That's just the way life is built. But pick out the positive side of it. What did you do right? And you build off of everything that they've done right. And you keep I call it harping on it, where you just keep reminding them about all the good. And eventually that registers.
And then you're there to help them absorb the bad and then coach that individually to them, not broadcast it out and in the moment kind of a thing.
Yeah, you can point out the parts where they maybe got down on themselves a little bit, but you also point out how they could not get down on themselves and look at the positive side of what happened. And everybody makes mistakes. That's life in general. It's what you do after you make the mistake. You can turn a mistake into a positive. So it's more about the recovery of after you've had a negative. How do I find a positive next?
That's brilliant. So I loved what you're just talking about. And this quote came to mind. I'm pretty sure it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you cannot, you're right. And I think that encapsulates the mindset you were just talking about. Have you ever heard that quote before?
I've actually heard that quote. It's a great quote.
Yeah.
Right. Positivity brings positive, negativity will bring the negative. And it's how you perceive things.
You're making me laugh because in my kind of journey as a youth hockey coach, I have spanned the spectrum of being the yelling lunatic coach to trying to always be the positive coach, but never feel like I've quite mastered the Zen part in the middle. So you're just making me laugh. But I too, I love that quote. I think it goes exactly to what you were just talking about. There's another kind of aspect of this while we're kind of zooming in this I wanted to ask you about. There's something that one of the captains of my college team taught me. And I want to get your reactions and get, see what you would say about this. And there were times when our coach would scream and yell, and you didn't know what they were yelling at. And the captain, who I thought did a really good job, would come by, especially if you were getting the brunt of it, and say, hey, take what you need, leave the rest. Just listen to what you need, and the rest just put it aside. What do you think of that?
I actually like that because you can pull a positive out of criticism. I
Okay.
mean, you look at sport, somewhere over the course of the game, you're going to make a mistake. Coaches will point it out. So you take the positive, and yeah, sometimes it gets overblown a little bit and they might yell and scream at you. You eliminate the yelling and the screaming and pick out the positive part of what he's actually trying to teach you. Is it fun being yelled at? No, but at the same time, there's a benefit to it sometimes. I played in the era where coaches didn't like things, they screamed and yelled at you.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
guys are a little bit more sensitive, where you can't really yell or belittle anybody, but back then you could. But you could still pull positive out of it.
Yeah, I think we grew up playing in the "it's my way or the highway"
Yeah,
era.
there's no gray area. It is or it isn't.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so one of the things that I think is kind of worth getting us back on is I was really surprised to learn when you were with the Oilers, that idea of a goalie coach didn't exist yet. It came in much later in your career. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, how did that feel when all of a sudden you have that coach that you didn't have for so long? Like, how did you take it, and what did it do for you, positive or negative?
It kind of gave me a chance to see if what I was thinking and how I saw the game matched with how he thought the game. And I was pretty fortunate. The first coach I had was Mitch Korn. And Mitch is world renowned as a goalie coach. So it wasn't so much the technical side of it as the mental side and seeing different things and comparing different notes on how he saw it, how you saw it while you were playing. And it just builds a bigger base.
And the kind of other side of that coin for me was how when you didn't have that coach in the first part of your career, you had that mentor in who the other tender was on the team, right? So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
you try to
Right,
help each other.
right.
So a lot of it is just you're always learning. That's the one thing that you never stops. You'll learn right up until the day you die. So you're always trying to learn something, and you try and pull as much positive as you can out of everything.
What I'm curious about is as you then, went along your career and your career evolved, how you took from being, the person asking all the questions to being the now the experienced one answering questions.
Again, you're still learning. I mean, if the younger guys are asking you questions, it might be a question you've never thought of. So you come up with the answers, but you're also learning from them because they're seeing the game a certain way. You're seeing it a certain way. It's how do you put the two together to make both of you better?
Yeah. That's a fabulous point, right? Just getting that other perspective and not rejecting it, but absorbing it to see how it fits in your world and then maybe making a change, right?
Yeah, I mean, some things work for you, some things don't. Some things will work for them, some things won't. So it's a matter of pulling the best out of both ideas and trying to make yourself a better goalie.
So there's this mindset in our coaching community that I want to, present to you and see how it fits into what we're talking about. And it's this idea of when we hear something taught to us, our first reaction is often, that's a stupid idea, and you are so stupid to bring that idea to me. The other version of it is, that's never going to work in my law firm. Like, oh, you have to understand. Like, no, nope, that will never work for mine. You don't know how my law firm works, right? And then we have this thing where that idea eventually progresses until the person absorbs it, uses it, and tries to sell it back to the coaching community as a profit center for them. But I want to focus on that first part, because I think that's what we're talking about, right? The idea of you could get stuck in that won't work for me mindset. So how do you do that?
Well, part of it is sometimes people are afraid to grow. You're very comfortable in your ways. You've got a set way of doing things that you don't want to broaden your horizon of it. You won't look at new ideas, new ways of doing things. Whereas I feel that the more you can absorb, the more you can add to your game or whatever you're doing, the better you're going to be. So yeah, some ideas don't work, but you don't know they don't work until you try them.
I love that idea of fear. I'm sure maybe you were presented that at times in your career. How do you get over the fear?
It's just a matter of you pretty much have to. And if you're going to grow and you're going to become better, you can't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at my career as if I'm going to play for a long time, I've got to add something new every year.
Okay.
And the more I can add, the better I'm going to be, the longer I'm going to be around the game. And I managed to hang out for 20 years. So the theory works. It's just a matter of you have to believe in it and trust it.
And I'm sure, like to tie it back to something we talked about earlier, right? It's actually really good if you try something that doesn't work because you still learned a lesson.
Well, exactly. If you try it and it doesn't work, well, you've now learned that, oh, by the way, that doesn't work for me. So I don't have to try it again now.
I remember we were teaching little guys edge work.
Yep.
And the idea was so I want you to fall, right? I want you up on that. I'd rather have you do it right and fall than do it wrong and stay up, because you won't learn where the limit of your edges are if you don't fall down, right?
You can't learn without falling.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So I think there's something that we, really could get some value of hearing about. And again, for those in the hockey world that don't know, you did not play for the Oilers the entirety of your career. You played some other teams.
No, I got bumped around in the last half of my career. I got to see some new cities, some new organizations.
What I particularly recall about, that later part of your career is you had this amazing stint with the St. Louis Blues. And as much as it pains me to say it, the St. Louis Blues would have won a Stanley Cup, but for an injury you sustained in that year. My memory of you in that year was the stats you posted that year were on par with the best stats you ever had. My memory is you almost had like an Iron Man thing where you played more minutes and more games that I think is still a record today. If
Yes,
not,
I mean, 79 games is still a record. So,
yeah.
as an old guy, I was old by then too.
Yeah. So the reason I want to talk about this is, some of us, we lead our teams, we have our businesses, we've been doing it for a while, and it can get stale, like all those things. And, here you are, right? Most people say he's washed up, he's out, and you go at this amazing stint and really was the gateway to this awesome end of your career. So how do you make that pivot? And what's that like?
Well, again, it's trying to believe in yourself. I mean, at that point, there was lots of doubters, but I didn't doubt myself. So when I got to St. Louis, it was like, well, you're going to play a little bit. I'm like, okay, great. Didn't have the greatest training camp, but got to the year and started to play. And then Mike Keenan just, well, are you tired? And I'm like, no, tired's a mindset. So you just play. Ended up playing the first 76 in a row, and then kind of tweaked the knee a little bit and took 2 games off and ended up playing 79 of 82. So it's a mindset more than anything else, that you have to have belief, and it doesn't matter. You got to tune out all the negative. And there's always negative. Everybody wants you to fail. So if you can find a positive and try and be successful. Success is a catchy thing. People will jump on that bus if they see how positive and how much you believe.
That's so powerful what you just said, right? Um, and when we look at people that may have all the skill in the world but fail at that leadership part, right? I think what you just talked about plays a role there, which I think ties back into something you said earlier. As we kind of started talking about this, the second part of your career, one of the things you had mentioned was when you finally got that goal, the goalie coaching, it wasn't technical stuff. You weren't learning, different save techniques. It was all mindset type positivity stuff.
And the older you get, the more the mind has to work. It's the hardest muscle in your body to train because natural instinct is to find the negative, where you've got to train yourself to find the positive and build off the positive, and you build belief that way.
When did you realize, okay, it's time to transition to a life off the ice, so to speak?
I was kind of fortunate. My body was done. I'd had 11 or 12 surgeries on my one knee, so it wasn't very happy with me. And I probably could have hung around for another year, but I wasn't getting better. I was only going to go get worse. So when you get to a certain point, you've had success, to hang around just to hang around didn't make any sense to me. So the body wasn't happy, which started to make me not happy. So because you can't do the things that your mind still works. But when the body can't keep up with the mind, then it was time to call it a day.
Yeah. And when you called it a day, did you already develop kind of the idea of what you were going to try and get into next? Or was that not in the cards yet?
No, I had no idea what I was going to do. So I was pretty fortunate that Calgary asked me to step in and coach right away. So I didn't have that gap where a lot of guys get that gap and that's where they get lost. Whereas I jumped right into coaching and it made the transition a lot easier.
I'm curious as to what it was like going from playing to coaching without having any kind of gap. What was that adjustment like for you?
It's pretty similar. I mean, as an older goalie, you're helping your younger partners anyway. So the only difference is now you're not getting beat up in practice. Yeah, you spend a lot more time at the rink, but your body's a lot happier with you. But you're still seeing the guys. You're still spending time with the guys. You're still working on all the same things. It's just now you're wearing a sweatsuit instead of putting goalie gear on.
What did you bring to coaching from your playing days?
I think more than anything, the positive mindset. You wanted to be positive. In my last year, yeah, the body hurt and you couldn't do the things you wanted, but you could still think your way through games. So physically limited, but the mind still works. And you can will yourself to do things. Body might not really appreciate you, but at the same time, as long as you're positive about what you do, the guys around you see that and they feel that and it rubs off on them.
If it's okay, I want to take you back to another game.
Sure.
It's the one we kind of alluded to pre-recording. And from my perspective as a Boston Bruins fan, this was just such a weird game. And hopefully you might remember this one because it was at the Boston Garden.
I could probably pick the game you're going to choose.
Yeah, the Stanley Cup game when some weird things happened, right? And so for those who don't know, well, Grant, what's the story behind this game?
I'm going to guess you're going to pick the game where the lights went out.
That's the game we're going to talk about.
The Boston Garden was notorious for being old, and some of the story goes that maybe a rat chewed through a power line or something. But the lights ended up going out, and we loitered around the building for 2 or 3 hours waiting to see if they get the power back on, and they never did. And then decided they were going to replay the game because I don't remember if we tied the game up or they tied the game up right before the lights went out.
You did.
But it was about 3-3, if I remember right.
Yep.
And unfortunately for Boston, they decided to replay the game back in Edmonton. So big advantage for us.
Right. And I think you guys finished the sweep, right?
And we ended up sweeping. I think it was the series were going 2-3-2 at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And the other weird part about it was the NHL said, listen, we're just going to pretend the game didn't happen, see what happens. And if we need that game 7, it wouldn't be we're starting from 3-3 at whatever point in the third period we are. We're going to play a whole new game, but it'll go back to Boston.
Yeah, Boston would have ended up getting game 7.
Yeah.
So it would have altered things, but we knew going back home, if we were going to get 2 straight games back at home instead of having that 1-1, it had a big advantage for us.
It was. And before the lights went out, wasn't that also the game where all the fog kept coming on the ice? I had to stop the game a couple times anyways because the fog was coming up off the ice.
Yeah, it had a little character to that game. We had some fog. We had lots of different delays. It was just one of those weird nights.
I have a vivid memory of watching that game at my house. I can picture it in my head and just, as that was the '88 series. So as a 14-year-old, just being completely disappointed. And I remember the commentators. We used to watch the games on Channel 38 back then, and just listen to the commentators because, like I said, no one knew what was happening. It's not like today where the TV trucks are connected, so they're telling you what's happening as it's happening. It was, we don't know. There's commercials, and what a game! But to be on the ice for that. So again, you're in the middle of this game. You're supposed to perform. You guys just tie it up, right? You sit in a locker room. Like, how do you keep yourself in the game?
Well, it's funny. We sat on the bench for a while and loitered around. Then we ended up going back into the dressing room, and the dressing rooms were dark. So now you're basically sitting in the dark trying to figure out, are you going to play again? Or how do you find everything that you have at the rink? Because now it's dark. And nobody had cell phones. So no cell phone lights.
No cell phone lights. Man, yeah. That's
So
just,
lots of adventures to think about at that time.
yeah. And that's just one of those games that's, especially if you're in the towns that we're in, that just stand out in hockey history. Is just one of the greatest kind of weird things that happen. I can't even imagine something like that happening today.
No, today it probably wouldn't happen. They've got backup generators and everything else now. And the new buildings are so sophisticated that pretty sure that lights don't go out too often anymore.
Yeah. The last time I remember anything like that, even close to happening, was in the NFL a couple of years back, and it was a Super Bowl when the lights went out for a little bit, but they got them back.
Yeah. We thought the lights were going to come back. And all our guys were prepared to pick the game up and keep going.
Can't even imagine how you stay in the moment for that. But you guys did, and when they moved, it came back. So one of the important things for us in our community is not just running a great practice, right? Not just learning how to be the best of lawyers, the best business owners we can be, but it's also leading a great life. So it's okay with you. I kind of want to talk a little bit about how you tied what you were doing professionally while you were playing, even now, to kind of the life you wanted to live. So, for us, it's like, for those who are listening and they want to build something great in work and in life, like what wisdom do you have? How did you fit that in as you were journeying down your career and then transitioning?
Well, I think once I got out of the game, I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. So I dove into coaching, did that for a little while, and filled a lot of my vacant time with golf, just because it's a game you could be competitive at forever. I still fill a lot of the time with golf. So I got a chance to compete there a little bit. But at the same time, you want to figure out what you want to do with life. And I'd always been taught as a young kid that you want to give back. So in that sense, you've got a platform as an athlete. Now you've got that opportunity to give back, and now I've got time. So my wife and I think when we first got together, we were traveling 180, 185 days a year to different charity things. So you're always trying to give back and make the world a little bit better place.
I like that. And how do you shape a great life today?
I think you have to pick something you like. I mean, there's always something positive. Again, it goes back to being positive. Find something you enjoy and build on it. I mean, whether it's playing golf or doing family things or doing charity work, there's always something you can be positive at, and it kind of fulfills what you're doing. You got to have something to fill that void so that the negative doesn't have time to creep back in.
One thing I'm hearing through this, I'm hoping you can confirm it for me, is while you changed the passion you're pursuing, your definition of success at that hasn't changed. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay.
Success hasn't changed, but how I go about it and how I get gratification from it, that's about the only thing that's changed. So now I teach a little bit, whether it be golf or hockey, do a little bit of both, and still do a lot of charity stuff. So I still get the gratification from it. You still get to see positives, and the negative doesn't get a chance to creep in.
And as you kind of have these lessons now that you're taking away, if you were able to go back in time to your younger self, the 20-year-old self, the self that's, going on this journey, what would you tell yourself?
That I should have become old a lot faster. The beauty of being young is you get to make dumb mistakes. So, I mean, that's the fun of having a young man play a sport. You don't think about the consequences of what you do. Whereas you get older, you know what the consequences are. So, yeah, you could eliminate a few mistakes in life, but at the same time, those mistakes are what make you grow. So I wouldn't give any of the mistakes up. I would just make it a little easier and a little smoother road.
um, I like that advice. That's really good advice. It actually resonates really, really well. Um, the idea of setbacks, right? I think one thing that's very similar to the athletic fields and world and the entrepreneurial world are the idea of setbacks. We've talked about it a little bit, but one of the things I'm wondering is there a particular failure that kind of stuck with you that said, this is where I learned the most from?
Just certain things in life.
Hmm.
I mean, you would love to live a positive life, but again, until you make mistakes, you don't realize they're mistakes. So you make a mistake, you find the positive in it, it allows you to grow and build off of that. And everybody's going to make mistakes along the way. Everybody's going to have some setbacks. It's what do you do after a setback? And how do you find the positive in it? And how do you find the positive within yourself?
What I'm hearing you say out of that is if that's kind of how you handle it, this idea of having maybe this like grandiose failure doesn't stick with you because you're processing quicker, learning the positive lesson, and then you don't have this one thing to keep looking back on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, the press, people will always pull the negative out for you. So you have to be able to just let it roll off you and find the positive and find out what the positive is that comes out of that failure more than anything. And you build off of that. You don't build off of the negative because it can roll the other way just as fast.
Say more about that.
So if you're something negative happens, you dwell on it, everybody around you dwells on it. Well, that negative can take you into some places that aren't very good. There's some dark places you can go if you can't get the sunshine and the positive back. So when you pick the positive out of it, everybody else will still look at the negative. You have to find the positive and within yourself, find that sunshine and find what brings you the happiness.
Do you remember as you were practicing this mantra, when was the hardest moment for you to find that positive, to find that sunshine? Like, where you kind of wallowed in that darkness the longest?
Oh, probably when I got suspended. I think that was the biggest thing. I
Okay.
mean, I at that time was going to be a year suspension and ended up only getting 40 games, but that 40 games is probably 3.5 months of not going to the rink, not playing hockey, where you've got to find some positive. And there wasn't a whole lot of positive at that time. And that's the one time where it could have gone either way. But I had a great group of teammates that I still saw the guys every day. Wasn't allowed to see them around the rink, but we'd see them off ice, go to dinner with the guys, that sort of thing. So you still get to see the guys, and they were all positive. So that positivity kind of drags you along, where you don't get a chance to sit back and think about all the negatives. There was probably a good couple of weeks where there was a lot of rain clouds. But again, you don't dwell on the rain clouds. You try and find your way out of that.
And I love the idea that you let the community you had built around you, right, the culture that you were within, be the thing that helped lead you out of that and stay on when you felt maybe you couldn't. I love the idea of that.
Yeah, you get to hang around positive people.
Yeah.
And for me, I was pretty fortunate. You got positive teammates. I'm in my hometown, so I've got people I grew up with that are positive. So I have lots of positive influences around me.
And you're right. A thing like that, the suspension, the amount of time that could easily be too much for anyone to overcome. But I would think it's that foundation you put in of that mindset work that let you do that, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen both ends of it. The positive guys that come out of the positive side. I've seen guys come out of the negative side.
Yeah.
And the negative side never ends well.
Never does. I agree with you. Yeah. There's been some real sad stories from that. Well, Grant, this is awesome. I love everything that you've been talking about. I like I said, particularly resonate with the gratitude habit, that mindset. It's something that I practice every day, and I would argue, and have argued in the past, is one of the things that changed my life for the better when I committed to doing that. So I was really happy when you talked about that. I want to kind of end with this. So we asked about what your current self would go back in time and say to your younger self, what if we reversed it? What if your younger self suddenly showed up and had something to tell you? What do you think that would be?
Well, my younger self would probably be pretty happy about where things have finished.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, I'm getting a little older, but there's still things to build on. And I think that's the greatest thing is you've always got different goals. And the goals never end. As long as you set little goals for yourself, you've always got something to push towards. And as you succeed with the little goals, you set your next goals. And you're always trying to build. Eventually, Father Time wins, but right up until that point, you can always find positive things and things to build towards.
Well, that's genius, Grant. I want to thank you so much for being with us today, for having this conversation, for indulging a hockey fanboy like me. And but before we go, I think it'd only be fair if we asked you to kind of pull out not one thing, but maybe what the top 3 takeaways you would have for our community off of our conversation. Maybe you brought in a point we didn't get a chance to talk about, that would be fair too.
3 things. I think the biggest thing I would say is you've always got to believe in yourself more than anything. I think that's one key. And obviously, I kind of try and live in the world of positive, where you're always trying to find something that's positive, even the littlest things every day. Pull out a little something positive. And my favorite is never stop following your dream. I mean, you've got to chase your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. You see a lot of that where people don't want you to be successful. So you've got to follow your dream and just believe in yourself.
Awesome. Excellent work. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.